news bulletin.
What separates a good news bulletin from the ones you see on online blogs?
What does it really mean to deliver news as it is?
As it is?
Accurate, swift, informed, trusted, impartial, straightforward.
I see what you did there. Let me give it a try. Authentic, source verified, in-depth, timely, independent spotlight.
From the news desk, where accurate reporting is prepared with precision, nothing escapes our watchful eyes as we bring you the news swiftly, right as it breaks. True, well-informed research from trusted sources, because we are a trusted source. We deliver every story without any form of learning or ideology. We remain impartial. We remain straightforward. This is Western Spring Television. You are welcome to News as it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. DSS arraigns former Kaduna State Governor Nasir Arufai over arraigns former Kaduna State Governor Nasir Arufai over NSA Nuhu Rabadi's phone interception allegation. Troops foil attack on Yobe community, neutralized 24 terrorists. On the firing scene, Iran tightens control of Hormuz after U.S. calls of renewed attacks. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. I am Temitope Ajijolaolua. The Department of State Services has arraigned former Kaduna State Governor Nasir Arufai over allegations of unlawfully accessing a telephone conversation involving the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Rabadu. Arufai, who also served as Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, has been prosecuted on an amended 5-count charge before a federal high court in Abuja. At the commencement of proceedings today, the prosecution informed the court that the charges had been increased from 3 to 5 counts. Staying with legal matters, the federal government on Wednesday arraigned 6 suspects over allegations of plotting a coup to oust President Bola Tinubu. The suspects were arraigned before a federal high court in Abuja on the 13-count charge bordering on alleged terrorism. They all pleaded not guilty to the charge. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik thereafter remanded the suspects in DSS custody while the case was adjourned to April 27. Earlier, Justice Abdul Malik put the arraignment on hold following the inability of one of the 6 defendants, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Sani Zaria, to understand the English language. When the case was called, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Sanusi Musa, announced that his client understands and speaks only Hausa and Arabic. In the proceedings that followed, Justice Abdul Malik ordered that an interpreter be provided for the defendant in the interest of justice. Suspects linked to the deadly Anguwan Rukuba attack that left schools dead have been brought before the Plateau State High Court for arraignment, marking a significant step in the search for justice over one of the most tragic incidents in recent times in the state. The accused persons, arrested by operatives of the Department of State Services, were presented before Justice Gedelia Fromyoung and Justice Jacob Longden in courts 12 and 9 of the Plateau State High Court amid heightened public interest and grief from affected communities. The Plateau State Government formally charged the suspects in connection with the killings, which occurred during a period of heightened tension and have since drawn widespread condemnation. They were arrested between April 3 and April 10. The State Attorney General, Philemon Daffy, who filed the charges, said the actions of the four men were contrary to Section 269 and punishable under Section 270 of the Penal Code Law of Plateau State 2017. The Anguwan Rukuba attack, which claimed over 30 lives, triggered outrage across Jos and beyond, with calls for accountability and stronger security measures. The Supreme Court of Nigeria on Wednesday reserved judgment in the appeal filed by former Senate President David Mark over the leadership crisis rocking the African Democratic Congress. A five-member panel of the Apex Court, led by Justice Muhammad Gadaba, fixed the matter for judgment after parties adopted their final written addresses. Mark, who leads a faction of the party, is challenging the March 12 judgment of the Court of Appeal, which ordered parties to maintain the status quo in the dispute. In his appeal, the former Senate President argued that the appellate court exceeded its jurisdiction and insisted that the crisis bordered on internal party affairs, which courts lack powers to adjudicate. The suit was initiated by aggrieved party members led by Nafi Bala Gombe, who is contesting the legitimacy of the Mark-led leadership of the party. Mark is also seeking an order restraining INEC from recognizing any leadership other than his faction, pending the determination of the appeal. The dispute has already triggered regulatory action, with INEC removing the names of the contending leaders from its portal and declining to recognize any faction until the legal battle is resolved. Here in Osun State, ahead of the 2026 governorship election, the National Peace Committee and the Caucus Center have moved to promote peace, credible and inclusive election in the state. With support from the European Union, the center convened a validation forum and context analysis and political parties' compliance assessment towards developing specific recommendations with key electoral stakeholders ahead of the gubernatorial poll. In his welcome address, Senior Programs Officer at the Caucus Center, Estra Majaya, has stressed that electoral competition should not undermine peace and stability. He emphasized the need for institutions to operate with fairness, transparency, and accountability throughout the electoral process. On her part, the project officer, Regina Dogo, highlighted the importance of inclusivity in the electoral process, particularly the need to strengthen the participation of women and persons with disabilities. She noted that the meeting was convened to present and review data gathered during the political and social context analysis conducted across the state.
The assessment does not merely diagnose challenges, it invites responsibility. It highlights the areas where each stakeholder group represented in this room has both influence and opportunity to act. The identified risks, ranging from unresolved local government issues to patterns of political mobilization and security concerns, are not insurmountable. However, they require deliberate, coordinated, and timely responses. The fact that locations such as Ife and Ede have emerged as focal points reinforces the urgency of locally grounded solutions. This validation meeting is therefore a critical step, not just to review our findings, but to build consensus, and more importantly, to strengthen our shared commitments. We are here to collectively affirm that electoral competition must not come at the cost of peace.
We can strengthen our political parties to make sure that all their activities, whatever they do, they comply with the legal framework that guides their activities, and also ensure that there's inclusivity in their activities. Ensure that you carry people along, especially enhancing women participation and also persons living with disabilities. So the purpose of this our engagement is to present our findings. We conducted a compliance assessment studies here in the state.
The 2026 Osun gubernatorial contest
is not merely about individual candidates. It will test whether grassroots incumbency appeal can withstand structural institutional power. So we target a 3-horse race. Now, we'll take a snapshot look at what the Osun security incident has been so far. Just like my colleague has earlier mentioned, that we have the Election Security Information Hub, and they have been gathering information around election-related violence as well as electoral offense tracking for the legal framework. Since June 2025 till March 2026, they were able to record a total of 16 incidents, 3 of which were kidnapping, 21 deaths, and 11 injured.
Now to security, troops of the Northeast Joint Task Force Operation Arraign have successfully repelled a coordinated attack on the Kukareta community in the Damaturu local government area of Yobe State, killing 24 terrorists and recovering 18 AK-47 rifles, among other equipment. In a statement made available to newsmen by the Media Information Officer of the Theatre Command, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the incident happened in the last hours of Wednesday. He disclosed that the attack, which commenced shortly after midnight and lasted until about 3 a.m., was met with a swift and coordinated response by troops who executed a deliberate defensive action, effectively containing the assault and forcing the terrorists into a disorderly withdrawal. He added that during the engagement, troops inflicted heavy casualties in the attackers, with 24 terrorists neutralized so far. It further revealed that troops recovered a significant cache of arms and ammunition, including 18 AK-47 rifles, 3 general-purpose machine guns, 2 PKT automatic anti-aircraft guns, 3 RPG tubes, 2 mortar tubes, 4 hand grenades, 18 AK-47 magazines, and large quantities of belted 7.62 mm ammunition for PKT systems. Ubar explains that 2 personnel were wounded in action, but have been stabilized, while 1 reinforcing armored tank sustained damage, with all tires blown out during the engagement. Moving on, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has disclosed key federal government interventions aimed at reducing the financial pressure on airlines following rising concerns over the cost of jet A1 fuel and the threat of service disruptions in the aviation sector. The minister made the disclosure after hours of meeting with a delegation from the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, airline operators, and oil marketers, among other stakeholders. The meeting was convened in response to the sharp increase in aviation fuel prices, which operators say has become unsustainable. The minister reveals that President Bola Tinubu had approved a generous discount on certain outstanding fees owed to the federal government by airline operators. He explains that the decision is part of efforts to provide immediate relief to the sector and prevent a breakdown in air transport services. He also revealed that in the coming days, the president will constitute a special committee to review and reduce multiple taxes and levies currently embedded in airfares. According to him, the move